All right, hello everybody. Today we're gonna jump into a few sort of housekeeping contracts, or not contracts, but AIA documents that we never got to really talk about. One of them is the instructions to bidders, which is not a contract, and it takes place right after we complete our construction documents, when we're ready to assist the client in the preparation of bidding documents. Or instruction to bidders is one of those sort of documents that we have to share and follow to assist bidders in their application process, basically to help them out. But technically we're not assisting the bidders, we're actually assisting the owner obtaining bids. We don't do that. The owner does it, so we just assist them. Other ones that we're gonna go through quickly. We're not really gonna read them a whole lot, but we're gonna talk a little bit about them. Is the change order document, the construction change directive document, and the architect supplemental instructions. Why am I going to talk about those three? Well, those three are the ways that we can modify the contract in one way or another, right? One is the architect by himself, the other one is a construction change directive, the other one is a change order. Those are three ways of modifying the contract. I wanted to bundle those three in. They are the G series with the instruction to bidders, because guess what? Bidders will have changes. So let's just quickly see what these things look like. Another one that I do want to show, I don't have it right here open though, is the certificate for payment, but that's okay. So before I go so deep into it, why don't I show you the relationship of the contracts? My little favorite chart right here. On the A201, which is the standard sort of for the design bid build, standard general conditions of the contract, we have all of these relationships. And our responsibility here, we begin as the architect designing the project, then we are the architect assisting the client administering the construction for the project. So first we work for the client, then I guess we basically work with the client during construction. We are their agents basically. And when we finalize our construction documents, at the very end, when they let's say they meet the budget, we create an estimate, a cost estimate, and it meets the budget that the client wanted and all of that, we proceed to to get bidders, right? In public jobs, we do some sort of advertisement, and in the advertisement, sometimes we do add the instruction to bidders. It is the A701. It might be a newer version of this. We have the 1997 here. I don't know if there is any new version of it, but this document starts kind of like letting people know what we're all about. And I have read it before, but this is the only video you will have from me that combines all of the three G's that we deal with, the most important three G's, and the instruction to bidders, and my favorite diagram. So this is a fun one for you. So let's go through it. So the instruction to bidders, again, there are instructions as to how to bid the job. And it begins with the name of the project, the name of the owner, the name of the architect, a bunch of definitions, and we'll quickly try to go through all of those. Article 1 says definitions, of course, bidding documents. And what are the bidding documents? I always also talk about a diagram that we mention all the time that is on our project resource manual, I think is the book that has it. It's like a big axiom of all of the what the construction documents are, what the contract documents are, what the bidding documents are, and all that stuff. So you can take a look at those. So bidding documents include the bidding requirements and the proposed contract documents. The bidding requirements consist of the advertisement or invitation to bid, instruction to bidders, which is this, supplementary instructions to bidders, the bid form, and other sample bidding and contract forms. The proposed contract documents consist of the form of agreement between the owner and contractor, conditions of the contract, A201, and it could also be the general, which is A201, and supplementary, which could be any other, and other conditions. So the drawings, the specifications, and all addenda issued prior to execution of the contract. So the word addenda, again, is just changes to the contract documents that were done prior to execution of the contract. There's no more addenda or addendum after the contract documents have been executed or signed. Why? Because those are change orders, construction change directives, or supplementary instructions, which is something completely different than the addenda. There are amendments to the contract documents, but not necessarily to the drawings, because the drawings were the drawings that were issued at the beginning, which are the drawings that were used to create a bid or a contract. Does it make sense? So then we say definition set forth on the general conditions. The definition set forth on the general conditions of the contract for construction A201 or in other contracts are applicable to the bidding documents. This is another important reason why we use the AIA contract documents. They are all related to each other. There is this other ones called EDGC or something like that, which are done by the Institute, by the Construction Specification Institute. They're slightly different, and they have you wouldn't want to mix them. That's one thing. Now we don't need to know those for the AIA for the AREs. We need to know the AIA ones for the AREs, as per their guidelines on the handbook that says which ones are included and which ones are not. And then that are written or graphic instruments issued by the architect. By the way, anything that has to do with instruments, just think about them coming from either the architect, structural engineer, mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, fire protection engineer, all of those guys. HVAC, those guys create instruments of service, right? So those are those. So graphic instruments, and all of the addenda are written or graphic instruments issued by the architect. By the way, they get issued by the architect. The architect is the one that issues the set. You wouldn't have the structural engineer issuing a set by himself or the mechanical engineer. They all come from the architect as one set, okay? In fact, we get compensated to compile all of this and to coordinate all of this with our work and their work, right, with us. So the architect, prior to the execution of the contract, would modify or interpret the bidding documents by additions, deletions, clarifications, or corrections. And addendas typically happen during the bidding process when people issued RFIs prior to the opening of bids or submitting bids. A bid is a complete and properly executed proposal to do the work for the sums stipulated therein, submitted in accordance with the bidding documents. So I always ask this question. So we want the project to be within the budget of $10 million. We receive, prospective bidders send bids. I wouldn't want to call it bids, but forms that exceed 10, 11, 12, $13 million. Our budget is 10. Is that bid that exceeds the 10 million an actual bid? Does it make sense? Is it or not? It's a weird question, though. It is not. Welcome aboard, Rebecca. We jumped into the 8701, which is instruction to bidders. This is actually being recorded, and you will see this on our YouTube channel. You are not missing that much because we just got started on it. But we're going to talk about this and some other contracts. And this is more aimed at practice management, project management, and construction and evaluation. More so construction evaluation than anything else. So as I said, 1.7, a bid is a complete and properly executed proposal to do the work for the sums stipulated therein. So they cannot exceed the amount that the owner wants. Like, it cannot be outside of the tolerances, or else it wouldn't be called a bid. 1.5, the base bid is the sum stated in the bid for which the bidder offers to perform the work described in the bidding documents as the base. So base bid is typically, okay, so there is the 10 million that the owner wants, let's say, for instance, right? But then there are other things that they want to add or delete. So we will have an add-in alternate or a deduct alternate or something like that. But you can actually do your own alternates as a bidder, prospective bidder. And I don't want you to think about you as a contractor, but I'm just saying a contractor could, because we are the architects. Think about your hat. Your hat is the hat of the architect. And they could offer alternatives to actually make that bid a proper bid. Does it make sense? That meets the criteria of the $10 million that they want to bid for. All right. So they can have work that can maybe added, deleted, or stated as alternate bids. Then we go to 1.6. An alternate bid is an amount stated in the bid to be added or to be deducted from the amount of the base bid. So is that something added to the 10 million or deducted from the 10 million? If the corresponding change in the work as described in the bidding documents is accepted. If us as the architects say that there is a alternate in our drawings, which we may have, then they are to include those alternates, deduct or add. They call it add alternate or deduct alternate. So they have to have those in there. And an actual bid has to comply with all of that. It wouldn't be a bid if it doesn't. By the definition, like I said, a bid is a complete and properly executed proposal. They answer all of the questions and they meet all of the criteria to be considered as a bid. Does that make sense? So now you know what an alternate is here. That's a very, very important topic to know, a very important name. So definition. So unit price, another very good one. Unit price is an amount stated in the bid, right? Your bid, the contractor will give you a bid that says, I have my unit price for all of the brick or for all of the cubic yards of excavation, typically, or cubic yards of concrete. They're always done on cubic yards. Concrete excavation, concrete pouring and excavations are always on cubic yards. That's the way they do it. So I would recommend all of you to learn the conversions between square feet, cubic feet, and square, yards and cubic yards. Very important. And again, is an unit price is an amount stated in the bid as a price per unit of measurement for material. It could be, a unit price of linear foot or square feet or things like that. Those are unit prices. A price per square feet, price per brick, price per cubic yard, price per blah, 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 blah. You can go on. It could be equipment, as it says, or services. Some people actually charge for cubic yards of soil removal. You would say, well, yeah, that's how they calculate the man hours of somebody for a day by the amount of cubic yards that there are to take. Now, there's a funny thing in there. Sometimes you don't know how many cubic yards you're going to be taking out. So you don't really know how much it's actually going to end up costing. So that's why contingencies are important on our cost estimates, but also on the the owner has to have a contingency. And the bidder should include a contingency amount also. So portion of the work described in bidding documents. Okay, so a bidder, so we know what the bid is, the unit price, the alternate, the base bid, but who is the bidder? So a bidder is a person or entity who submits a bid and who meets the requirements set forth in the bidding documents. So these bidding requirements are being met, and the bidding documents, the contract documents, which is actually the first definition, bidding documents, they meet those requirements set forth in there, and they are a bidder. Otherwise, they would just be a prospective bidder or a sort of pursuing, right? It's like a prospective batch. I don't know. I'll call it, something. But that's the case. Then we have a sub-bidder. A sub-bidder is a person or entity who submits a bid to a bidder. So if I am a bidder, somebody else wants to submit a bid to me for, let's say, plumbing, and they will give me that, and they are a sub-bidder. And it could be for materials, equipment, or labor for a portion of the work. Okay, bidder representations. This is what they represent, what they warrant when they're doing this, what they stand for, right? This is their truth. The bidder, by making bid, represents the following: that the bidder has read and understands the bidding documents or contract documents to the extent that such documentation relates to the work for which the bid is submitted. They've read the drawings, they've understood the drawings, they know what's going on in there. And therefore, prior to this, when they do this, we have a conference, bidding conference, they call it, where people go and submit questions. And there's a deadline by which we have to submit questions for RFIs. They call it RFIs, request for information. So if nobody asks any questions, That's a red flag right there, because we don't do perfect drawings. We don't do anything perfect. We don't even know sometimes what's going on in some aspects of the project. And we're actually expecting that the prospective bidders will enlighten us, to be honest, because we don't know everything. So, but by submitting a bid, it represents that they have already checked all these out and they already know what's going on in the drawings, in general, right? When it comes to their part of the work or portions of the project, or if any, being bid concurrently or presently under construction. It means that the bid is made in compliance with the bidding documents, right? What does this mean? Well, it means that if you say you're gonna do this project for $500,000, we expect it to be done for 2 million, but you want to be the lowest, bidder, and you are already representing. This is like a certification, honestly, like attestation, they call it too, that you have done this. This is what puts a lot of companies out of business out there, when they actually misread something, misunderstand something, and underbid something. You probably have heard of that. And they go bankrupt, literally. When they discover the problem, they're out. To be honest, they actually withdraw their bids, and we actually have a bid security deposit, and we also have a bid bond, which is an insurance company, basically, that will insure that bid and pay the difference for the next bidder that gets selected. Am I onto something in here, guys, or not? We're good? Told you this will be exciting. So the bidder also makes sort of the certification that he has visited the site. Okay, so whenever they submit a bid, they've done all of this. They should have done all of this. And if they didn't, you assume they did. This is one of the times in which you assume it. Why? Because they're required to have done that. So they've become familiar with local conditions under which the work is to be done, and and correlated the bidder's personal observations with the requirements of the project. They've read all of that stuff. I love these contracts. I very much. I really do. If I could actually add hearts and things to this video, I would put it right here, because they protect, like, they cover so much. I mean, I've done construction where you just shake the hands of the guy and it doesn't go well. Trust me, it does not go well. They come back and ask for more money. They come back and you say, you were going to do 15 doors. Why did you bring 10? Well, I didn't have enough money for the other 5. And you're like, dude, you said you were going to. Did I say that? And there's no way of actually knowing. They don't have anything. I mean, anything, And of course, I've had to pay for the next 5 doors, but those are neither there nor here. Those are learning experiences, very costly learning experiences. So 2.1.4 says the bid is based upon the materials, equipment, and systems required by the bidding documents without exception. I love it. Without exception, everything that is said to be done on those contract documents, as per the contract documents, shall be done as per the bidding documents. Period. The bidding documents. Copies. That's Article 3. So the bidder may obtain complete sets of bidding documents from the issuing office designated in the advertisement or invitation to bid. Most of the time, the architect himself, the office, in the number and for the deposit sum. So they actually pay a little deposit, by the way. It's stated there. They pay for these drawings. They do. We're not going to have the owner pay for it. Are you kidding me? So the deposit will be refunded to bidders who submit. So important. You're going to pay for these drawings as a deposit for these, not drawings, but bidding documents, right? Because there's more than drawings. There's a spec. There's a whole bunch of stuff as stated on the first definitions. So, but the deposit will be refunded to bidders who submit a, I always have a hard time reading this, bona fide bid, and return the bidding documents in good condition within 10 days after receipt of bids. So if they were to submit a proposal, basically, I don't want to use the word proposal. I'll tell you why. Proposals are for negotiated bids with negotiated contractors. Bids is open to everybody. It's public. It's democratic. All right. You know the difference between a proposal and a bid. right? We get
Well,
prospective bidders,
there
prospective contractors, right? Different things.
you can have a negotiated bid or a competitive bid. So a negotiated bid, you can do
Yeah,
a
you can.
private job where you
Private ones.
invite the contractors.
Yeah, you pre-select them. Yes. So you could have it like that. That is correct. So the deposit will be again refunded to the I'm gonna learn this word from now on forever. Bidders who submit a bona fide bid and return the bidding documents in good condition within 10 days after receipt of the bids. The cost of replacement of missing or damaged documents will be deducted from the deposit. Now, they're talking like this is, I mean, yeah, it could be costly. I mean, it could be like $300 worth of paper, to be honest, even $400. I mean, even 500. Actually, to be honest, it could get to the thousands now that I think about it. A tower, it's thousands of dollars of paper. You destroy some of this paper, you got to pay for it, period. I mean, yeah, if you think about it and you have to give 1 to 10 people, that's $10,000 out there, right there. That's a lot. I never thought about it because I haven't done any towers yet. Not yet. So a bidder receiving a contract award may retain the bidding documents and the bidder's deposit will be refunded. Whoever gets the award gets the pie. They don't even have to pay for that. They'll pay with blood after they're doing the project, probably. So 3.1.2, bidding documents will not be issued directly to sub-bidders. That's right. We don't give it to the plumber. We don't give it to the electrician. We give it to the GCs, the prospective GCs, right? And they got it. They got to make copies for everybody else, and they probably should charge them. Sorry. Unless it's specifically offered. If you say you're gonna give it, then you're gonna give it. If you don't say you're gonna give it, then we're not giving it. Okay. So then 3.1.3, bidders shall use complete sets of bidding documents in preparing bids. Neither the owner nor the architect assumes the responsibility for errors or misinterpretations resulting from the use of incomplete sets of bidding documents. Guess what? Today I had a situation. I go to this site. This project was my first project that I first stamped in my life, probably the second. It was done by another architect. The architect retired. I happened to have gotten my license right within that time. The architect had issued a set of drawings. Long story short, the building department requested some modifications to the drawings. I made the modifications to the drawings. It was something that had to do with planning. It had nothing to do with a full set of drawings. I didn't want to touch the rest of the drawings. I only wanted to modify some green spaces. It's planning stuff. It had nothing to do. Well, long story short, we issued those drawings. The building department replaced the drawings from the previous architect with our drawings, and our drawings were like 2 sheets. So they give copies stamped by the building department, approved for construction, to the contractors or prospective contractors that were being bid at that time, because they were changing contractors. And they're now building this building with drawings that have no dimensions. That was like, I saw that today. I'm like, oh my goodness, these are not the drawings. The owner didn't know. The owner couldn't, he's stepping into construction now recently. He didn't know much about it. But when I first heard the contractor, the framer telling me, architect, these drawings are not good. I'm framing that I'm trying to give the accent of somebody from Guatemala. These drawings are not good. We didn't know what we were doing. We had to make up the openings for the windows on in the walls. I'm like, what are you talking about? We saw these drawings. They weren't complete. Now, this doesn't really apply to section 3.1.3, but they do at the same time, because on the upper right corner of those drawings, it said, notify architect if you have any questions. So if you see no dimensions on a set of drawings, shouldn't you call the architect and say, something is up in here? I don't have dimensions. I mean, I don't even know how they bidded it. They bidded it out of what? How do they even know what they're doing? Long story short, it actually was a happy mistake. The contractors were pretty good. The framing looks pretty good. We'll really know the mistakes after they really go far on it, because they already framed the whole thing. I mean, I'm not gonna have them turn it apart, but it was pretty intense. If something is incomplete, they should know. In fact, they should know, because they also the drawings are skipping pages, the drawing list. I mean, you should know. Like those questions, I like when contractors ask questions like that. Like, well, why do you have A101, A102, and then you go to A105, A106? What's going on your drawings? I like that stuff. And you're like, why? Well, because they want to know whether they're missing something, because they're basing their contract on this. In fact, as you know, I said it before, they're basically certifying, ascertaining, they're attestating, I don't know if that's a word, that they're doing everything in accordance with the bidding documents. If the bidding documents are missing a page, hey, there's going to be trouble there. So it is their responsibility. That's why we have a time where they can actually submit questions and we submit answers by that time. 3.1.4, the owner and architect may make copies of the bidding documents available on the above terms for the purpose of obtaining bids on the work. No license or grant of use is conferred by issuance of copies of the bidding documents. You see this part, this little part is just saying, don't copy my drawings and go build the same building somewhere else. This is for you to create a contract, basically, period. Not to build this thing. We'll give you drawings that we typically call conform sets after this is issued. This is a conform set. It goes along with everything that you've done. All the addendas have been already taken up, picked up and everything. And now you can go ahead and build it. And then you get that license to build this particular building. But guess what? They don't have the license to, the contractor, again, I don't want to get into the B101. That's another thing you got to read in the A201, which is actually on our playlist in YouTube, on our YouTube channel. But this license right here is to create a bid. That's what I would call it, a license to create a contract. Then once you get awarded the contract, you get a license to build a building. It's not even yours, it's the owner's. The owner is kind of delegating his license. The owner paid for that license, not the contractor. So, but then again, we can make copies as needed. Nowadays, we just put it up on a portal and people print all they want. And it's kind of good and bad at the same time. Because, I mean, not all projects do it that way. In fact, like federal courthouses and things like that, they're highly confidential. So only certain people have access to these documents. And airports and things like that, right after 9/11, we try to be a little smart about it. Not so smart, though. I still think it's too public. But 3.2, interpretation or correction of bidding documents. Guess what? Nothing is perfect in life. So they may be an interpretation or a correction. That's why I keep saying we do RFIs, requests for information that come from the contractor to us, and we answer them. If they're reasonable, if they're unreasonably inferable, though, if the answer is what color is the brick and the brick says yellow brick right on the drawings, we're going to start charging somebody for that, actually the owner, because something is wrong. 3.2, the bidder shall carefully study and compare bidding documents with each other. Guess what? They got to review the drawings. Most people don't do that. I always tell, if a contractor reviews drawings, he's halfway there. And with other work being bid concurrently or presently under construction to the extent that it relates to the work for which the bid is submitted. I have a really nice plumber that I work with that gets into everything. He's a little nosy of a guy, but he gets into everything. He's reviewing his plumbing, but he's looking at the framing, he's looking at the electrical, he's looking at the HVAC, he's looking at everything. And sometimes he's like, now when the electrical panel is too close to my water line, you got to move that panel. He gets into things like that, and you're like, that's great. I like that stuff, because it means that either he's gonna have to move the water line or the electrical guy is gonna have to move the panel. He wants to make sure that gets covered somewhere before what is it? They say the word something hits the fan. I won't use the word, but yeah. So when things go wrong, he wants to protect himself, right? Defense, right? Defense. So stuff like that, right? So they gotta coordinate all that stuff, review all that stuff, and guess what? They shall examine the site in local conditions and shall at once report to the architects errors, inconsistencies, or ambiguities discovered. Shall at once. I mean, that term really means. I would wanna say it means compile all that stuff and send it over right away to the architect. Like, don't hesitate on it. And if you read the 801, you know what happens if they don't do it, and if they know that it was wrong, because it's almost like pushing the stock to go up to sell and then buying it low, like just manipulating the system, messing something up so that you can fix it. No, that's not right. So 3.2.2. Bidders and sub-bidders requiring qualifications or interpretations of bidding documents shall make written requests. Everything, guys, is in writing. Everything. Remember, I shake hand for $15 and I got 10. That's no, you don't shake hands and stuff like that. Those days are long gone, my friend. Everything has to be done in writing. We shall reach the architect at least 7 days prior to the date of receipt of bids. They can't just do it the day before. I mean, who are we? We're not gonna shake up conform sets and answer questions overnight. No, 7 days, buddy. So 3.2.3, interpretations, corrections, and changes of the bidding documents will be made by addendum. Interpretations, corrections, and changes of the bidding documents made in any other matter will not be binding. If I told you something about the drawings that will be changed, like I told you that, nope. If I didn't issue an addendum that is actually dated and sometimes it's even signed and properly put together, it's not binding. You can't go to court on it. You can't enforce it. Okay. And bidders shall not, you could try to enforce it. You're going to spend a lot of money on it, but you will lose. So, and bidders shall not rely upon them. So we don't like to make like warranties and talk and blah, blah. So 3.3, substitutions. The materials, products, and equipment described in the bidding documents establish a standard of required function, dimension, appearance, and quality to be met by any proposed substitution. 3.3.2, no substitution will be considered prior to receipt of bids unless written request for approval has been received by the architect at least 10 days, not 7, 10 days. Remember the days. Days are important in this stuff. Prior to the date of receipt of bids. They can't just start substituting stuff because they feel like it. They got to be approved. Such requests shall include the name of the material or equipment for which it is to be substituted and a complete description of the proposed substitution, including drawings, performance, and test data, and other information necessary for an evaluation. Because we got to make sure that what they're substituting makes sense. And I'm not going to let you tell me you're going to bring me a Mercedes and give me a Kia. All right? No. Give me the quality that I want. And if that's equal, I'm going to evaluate it. And I'm going to, by the way, the architect gets actually paid extra for evaluating substitutions if they're to be accepted. A statement setting forth changes in other materials, equipment, or other portions of the work, including changes in the work or other contracts that incorporations of the proposed substitutions will require shall be included. Like if you're going to change some sort of mastic, then you got to change the material that attaches to the mastic. By the way, mastic is the same as sealant. Some people didn't know that. Or caulking, I think I call it too. So the board approve of the merit of the proposed substitution is upon the proposer. The architect's decision of approval or disapproval of a proposed substitution shall be final. You say yay or nay as the architect. And I'm going fast, guys, because I do want to at least glance at the G's, because I promised I would talk about the G's. So 3.3.3. If the architect, and you can always slow down my voice on YouTube slowly. I think you can go really, really slow. And hopefully you will understand my gibberish. 3.3.3. If the architect approves a proposed substitution prior to receipt of bids, such approval will be set forth in an addendum. So it's a document that gets issued and says, addendum number 3, we are now receiving brick type SBX, period. You know what I mean? Like whatever the type of brick it is. We are accepting that. Why do we issue it as an addendum? The addendums are all issued prior to any bids being accepted, or even like the deadline, actually before the 7 days that we spoke about before. Why is that? So that they get a chance to adjust their bids, right? It ain't fair that you're going to just send it to one or to the other. You got to send it to everybody. And addendums are sent to everybody, to the whole public realm. Bidders shall not rely upon approvals made in any other manner. So the architect, you may have a question in construction evaluation where the architect answers your questions on the phone. You don't do that. You issue an addendum to everybody. You don't answer questions on the phone. You don't just sneak around and talk to people. Guess what? There's a lot of, I'm not gonna rant. I gotta go. So we'll keep going. So but you don't just talk to people like about sensitive data on the go, and you just talk to one and not to the other. In fact, if you're gonna do that, you do a conference and invite everybody, and whoever missed it, too bad, it's their problem, right? And it probably will be recorded or typed, like when you go to court. So 3.3.4, no substitutions will be considered after the contract award unless specifically provided in the contract documents. So you could say, brick SBX, blah, 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 or approved equal. And then guess what? They'll just try to propose some approved equals and you are accepting it, So that's it. 3.4, addenda. Addenda will be transmitted to all who are known by the issuing office to have received a complete set of bidding documents. How do you know who received it? Well, they paid a deposit. Remember that? They all paid a deposit to get these drawings. So you have a list of all the people that paid a deposit, unless you're keeping the cash somewhere else, which is not ethical. So I don't recommend that. So everybody's going to probably pay with a check, and you're going to stamp it and staple it and put it all together, and they are going to be getting their drawings, and you're going to issue an addenda to all of them. Now, if one of them misspelled their emails, too bad. If one of them misspelled their phone numbers, too bad. If one of them misspelled their address, too bad. Not your problem. Honestly, you're not going to be calling Danco Construction to tell them that they misspelled something. No, because that wouldn't be democratic. You should call everybody then. So, and then issue an addendum, say Danco Construction has misspelled their name, like whatever. No, you don't do any of that stuff. Copies of addenda will be made available for inspection, whatever bidding documents are on file for that purpose. Addenda will be issued no later than 4 days prior to the date of receipt of bids, except an addendum withdrawing the request for bid. You could actually do that one. You could actually say, just kidding, we ain't going to do the project anymore. You could do that. You could withdraw everything. Everybody gets their money, and that's it. They would just lose time because they were spending time putting these bids. But that's the only one that you can do, like actually even the same day off. Not ethical, I wouldn't think. But you could just withdraw the whole project for convenience or for whatever. So, or if you were to postpone the date of the receipt for bids, you could actually do that, right? So 3.4, and that could be another 3.4.4. Each bidder shall ascertain, this word's very important, ascertain, make sure, prove, I guess, reconcile, prior to submitting a bid that the bidder has received all addenda issued, and the bidder shall acknowledge their receipt in the bid. They actually have to write on one of the forms, on the bidding forms, we've received addenda 1, 2, 3, and 4. So when we see it, we can say, well, this bidder is automatically disqualified when we open it up. Why? Because they're not a responsible bidder. They're not giving us a bid, because the definition of a bid is somebody that actually has complied, right? You read that all the way before. So they would just, unfortunately, they didn't get it. It's too bad. There are things like that happen. You would say, Darwin, that's not democratic. It's too bad. They probably misspelled their email. They're probably, you know what? We are in a very tight community. In fact, in Massachusetts, I will use Massachusetts as an example. Anybody does something wrong, everybody in the community will know about it. Trust me, will know about it. So don't burn any bridges. That's something I teach everybody here. Don't burn any bridges, because it's a tight community. Now, sometimes contractors talk to each other, and that's okay, unless the contract documents say that they shouldn't. But even if the bidding documents say that they shouldn't, but even if the documents said it, they're both bound by probably some sort of what is it? Confidentiality agreement, CA, confidentiality, non-disclosure agreement. So, and DA. So they're both bound by it. So, like, if they share with each other, I think it's okay, because they're both they're both contractually obligated to keep it together, right? So long story short, they would know, like, hey, listen, how many addenda have you gotten? Well, they're 5. Oh, I haven't gotten that. Let me call. Hey, architect, I haven't gotten addenda number 5. I have 4. Oh, okay. So you should communicate. You should be on top of the game. In fact, I, as an architect, we do similar things like this, right? Some companies issued requests for proposals or requests for qualifications. And guess what? I learned from the big guys, the Gesslers, the Perkins and Will, the AYP, you know, they will call you. They would say, oh, I heard that you got invited for such and such project. And have you gotten any addendums? Have you gotten any, when is it the submission? And they already know all that stuff, but they're just gathering information and touching base to see what you know that they don't know, you know. And it's super fun though, actually. It's super fun. Like, you know, we Flow Design have been invited to a lot of projects that big firms have been invited, and we actually have been pre-selected to those projects. And long story short, we talk to each other. We're not enemies. I mean, we are, but we aren't. We're friends, you know. It's fun. It's a party, you know. So contractors should do something similar so that they know whether they're missing an addendum or not. Article 4, if they're acting in good faith. I mean, come on, we got to be good players. That's democratic. Article 4, bidding procedures, preparation of bids. Bids shall be submitted on the form included with the bidding documents. Don't use your own forms. We're giving you one. For instance, on my case, and I'm using a similar thing, but it's not the same. When I'm proposing like a request for applying for request for proposals, like submitting, sometimes they give me a form where I have to put like the rates, billing rates of everybody. Like, why am I going to use my own one? They're giving me one. Just fill it out. Don't do your own one. Because why? Well, you probably get disqualified, period. If they see something that doesn't look like what they told you it should look like, you're out. There's no tolerance for mistakes on this stuff. It's clear cut. It's almost like court. You violated it, you didn't. Did you or didn't you? Were you or weren't you? Period. Oh, I felt like it. No. So the same thing is with the bidding documents. When we open these bids, sometimes we even see like the address, names, and all that stuff on the cover and the amount. And as soon as we see something, it's like non-responsive bidder, non-responsive bidder, non-responsive bidder. You know, and sometimes, to be honest, some people get the job because they're the only ones that follow the instructions. Can you believe that? There was a project where I bid and another company bid, and all of the other ones were disqualified because their bids weren't right. And I was excited because I probably was gonna get the job. It was for a public school. We didn't get it. The other firm got it. I'm like, damn it, we were so close to getting it. But by the way, these bids are different though. I'm talking about construction documents bid, like architectural services bids and construction bids. The rules are similar though. I'm using it so that you understand what I mean. So 4.1.2, all blanks on the bid form shall be legibly executed in a non-erasable medium. It should say left blank on purpose. Why? So that when we open these bids or prospect, you know, these bidding documents, we don't think that they're missing something and put it on the disqualified pile because that page is blank and it doesn't say it was left blank intentionally. We may think that you ran out of ink when you were printing that and something critical was missing in there. And guess what? We're not going to call you to tell you to tell us to print another page. You're out as a contractor. And I'm not saying you guys. I'm using the you for contractors. Sometimes I'm going to use the you for architects. Sometimes I'm going to use the you for owner. I want you to understand that because this is critical to understand what your hat is. All of you, Miranda, Digna, Alan, Rebecca, Vivian, Alvelis, Prasanna, Mentin, Massive, everybody that joins this growing channel is the architect, period. Your role is the architect. So don't start thinking like a contractor. Don't start putting yourself into the contractor's shoes. You are on one shoe only. In fact, two. You have 2 legs, 2 toes, but 2 feet. But the architect only. That's confusing. And Miranda can, you know, pitch in on that. It's critical that you know what your hat is. So sums shall be expressed in both words and figures. And guess what? One precedes. In case of a discrepancy, the amount written in words shall govern. I'm going to repeat this. This is a spoiler alert. This may show up. Sums shall be expressed in both words and figures. In case of a discrepancy, when it says 2,500, and then they write 2,800, the word 2,800 wins, okay? Not the numbers. Why? Because it takes a whole lot more work to write something wrong in text than to actually write it in numbers. Sometimes a 6 looks like an 8. Sometimes a 9 looks like a 6 backwards. I don't know. I get dyslexic sometimes. So long story short, you would not mess up so much a text. That's why we have checks that you write the amount and you write the numbers. Got it? There may be another reason behind it, but this is my theory. All right. 4.1.4. Interlineations, alterations, and erasures must be initialed by the signer of the bid. Anything you put, like if you scrape something out, you got to put your initials right next to it. And I will put the date too. So right there, you know, that's for the contractor. Now, if you're presented with a contract, with a bid, with erases and messes and scratches, it doesn't have any signatures or initials right next to it, it is disqualified. Out. You wouldn't break it, by the way. You wouldn't break it. You will put it aside. It's part of the pile of the ones that could have been, but didn't make it. Too bad. So all requested alternates shall be bid. If no change in the base bid is required, enter not change. Important, okay? By the way, I think this section 4 is probably the most critical section out of this whole document, to be honest. So where 2 or more bids for designated portions of the work have been requested, the bidder may, without forfeiture is like quitting, like losing, you know, like when you forfeit, you let it go, you lost it, you're out, you forfeit. Some people forfeit a game, they don't even play it, they just say, we lost, we're out. They do it sometimes because they don't have a pitcher, they don't have a batter, they don't have a, you know, whatever the game may be. They just don't, they're not ready. They can't do it. They just quit it. So they may, I'm just trying to illustrate that text here, because as you know, me, Darwin Fortuna, and Flow Design Architects want to increase diversity in architecture. And a lot of people from other countries don't know all of these words. And if we want people from other countries like myself to become architects, we got to also teach a little bit of the vocabulary. Trust me. I failed some of my ARES exams, and partially had to do with the fact that I didn't know what they were talking about. So I've gotten pretty cultured, thanks to Miranda, that has been teaching me English, in among other things, throughout these sessions, you know, because it's critical to know. One word will make the whole difference. So without forfeiture of the bid security, state the bidder's refusal to accept a word or of less than the combination of bids stipulated in the bidder. Like they may just bid for something and not for the rest. And that's okay. You know, if it's allowed. If it's not allowed, then you don't do it. If he says, no, we accept only bids for the whole thing, then you're out. You're out. The bidder shall make no additional stipulations on the bid form, nor qualify the bid in any other matter. You can't just say, well, we're not proposing the plumbing, but guess what? We got such and such electrical. Like, you're not just replacing this. You simply say, we are not bidding for such and such, period. That's it. And if that's the basis for disqualification, you are out. Don't try to embellish it. That's for contractors, I'm saying that, not for you guys. So 4.1.7. Each copy of the bid shall state the legal name of the bidder. By the way, they gotta know their name too. And the nature of the legal form of the bidder. Nature of the legal form is entity, corporation, limited liability company, things like that. Who are they? What's their legal name? Why is this important? I'll tell you why. Here in Massachusetts, I've heard of a few companies that have gone bankrupt, and they've come back as another company with the same staff members and a different name and a different entity. And sometimes under their name, they have some sort of like doing business as, and you can discover that that's a company that was bankrupt before and it has a bad reputation and things like that. That's one reason, by the way, not all of it, but that's one I can come up with right now on the spot. You're immediately going to take and say you're out, period. So we got to know the legal entity. What if they are not a legal entity? What if they are just a person doing business as? There's things that have to do with entities, and there are things that I wouldn't want to just work with Jose Jose Martinez, doing business as Jose Martinez. Why? Because he's the person. He doesn't have a company representing him. Like, I like them to have an entity that covers them, and that I don't have to just go after their assets as a person. They have a company, and then I can go after the assets if the company doesn't have anything. But it's got to, and also it does show the legitimacy of the business. The bidder shall provide evidence of legal authority to perform within the jurisdiction of the work. Yeah, you ain't licensed here, you ain't working here, period. All right. So, you can't just do work whatever you want to. Trust me, that doesn't happen. In fact, as architects, you can't do work in a place that you're not licensed. You could design, but you have to hire or have an architect of record that will be working there. But you may not even design there if your entity or your company is not licensed to act as a business in such location. Complicated. It changes by jurisdiction. Talk to an attorney. I don't know much about that. So, but I'm going to enlighten you a little bit. Each copy shall be signed by the person or persons legally authorized to bind the bidder to a contract. You can't just have your 13-year-old daughter sign the document. She's not legal. She's not age appropriate to be able to sign this thing. You can't just have a neighbor sign for you. It's got to be done by either the president or the vice president or some sort of secretary or trustee or board of director that will have the authority to sign this. Not that you will be quizzed on this. I don't think you would, but I wanted to let you know. A bid by a corporation shall further give the state of incorporation and have a corporate seal affixed. I don't have a corporate seal, and my company is a corporation, which is something kind of weird. We made one up. We went online, and there's like quickseal.com or something, and you just made a PDF out of it, and I use Photoshop, and we made one up, and we'll keep using it ever since. But I didn't know that. You actually need to have a seal. I actually was going to throw my architecture stamp right on it. I mean, when you get an architecture stamp, you want to put that thing everywhere. Stamp. It's just fun. I really think it's fun. When you get your stamps, please do it. And send me a little emoji. A bid, or a little meme. A bid by a corporation shall further give a state of incorporation and have the corporate seal affixed. A bid submitted by an agent shall have current power of attorney attached, certifying that the agent's authority to bind the bidder. Oh my goodness, can we finish this? Can we do it? Can we do it? Bid security, we spoke about that. Each bid shall be accompanied by bid security, that's the payment, in the form and amount required if so stipulated in the instruction to bidders. The bidder pledges to enter into a contract with, this is important, critical, spoiler alert, this may show up in your exam. Project management, practice management, but mainly construction and evaluation. The bidder pledges to enter into a contract with the owner on the terms stated in the bid and will, if required, furnish bonds covering the faithful performance of the contract and payment of all obligations arising thereunder. Should the bidder refuse to enter into a such contract or fail to furnish such bonds, if required, the amount of the bid security shall be forfeited to the owner as liquidated damages, not as penalty. The amount of the bid security shall not be forfeited to the owner in the event the owner fails to comply with section 6.2. That's something later on. Now, the bid security is not what I spoke to you about before. The little retainer for the drawings, that's different. Those are two different things. The bid security is an amount, and we might set it, like the owner might set it up, like, it's $1,000, $2,000, $100,000, whatever that is. And it just helps the owner alleviate the pain of not entering into an agreement with somebody after they have already said they were going to enter into an agreement with you. To me, it's kind of the equivalent of a non-refundable deposit with clients. When I have clients that need to give me a deposit, and it's some of that is non-refundable. Why? Because I'm not wasting my time doing contracts for people for free. I'm not. I mean, I went through that long time ago. I'm not a student at the school. I'm a licensed architect. I got lights to keep on and computers to keep working and Revit licenses to pay, for God's sake. So, we have to do all that stuff. So this is the equivalent of that. It's like you promised to enter into an agreement with me. Now you defaulted. Then I keep that money, period. Because I have to go to the next one now. And then there's other things, these bonds too. You gotta learn that word bonds. If we actually do enter into a contract, and then after we enter into a contract, they want to get out, which they have some chances of actually getting out at some point, then the bonds will pay the difference for the next qualifying bidder. Okay. So the amount of the bid security shall not be forfeited. Again, if the owner fails, something that the owner needs to fail 6.2. 4.2.2, if a surety bond is required, it shall be written on the AIA document 310, bid bond. I would recommend that you read that. I think we should probably do it at some point. And I don't think we're going to be able to get through the G710, 714, and 701. I feel so bad. All right. But 310, let's remember that. So unless otherwise provided in the bidding documents, and the attorney, in fact, who executes the bond on behalf of the surety shall affix to the bond a certified and current copy of the power of attorney. The owner will have the right to retain the bid security of bidders to whom an award is being considered until either A, the contract has been executed and bonds, if required, have been furnished, or B, the specified time has elapsed so that bids may be withdrawn, or C, all bids have been rejected. It may happen. It has happened that all bids are out. They just don't make sense. Okay. Submissions of bids. All copies of the bid security, if any, and any other documents required to be submitted with the bid shall be enclosed in a sealed opaque envelope. The envelope shall be addressed to the party receiving the bids and shall be identified with the project name, the bidder's name and address, and if applicable, the designated portion of the work for which the bid is submitted. By the way, I stopped doing a lot of public jobs because I got tired of the amount of printing and amount of envelope that I was spending. And this little minority office wasn't being selected much. So I was like, yeah, I'm quitting. So I stopped, but I'll resume. But it's just costly. Like, look, all the paperwork you can do. If the bid is sent by mail, I never sent anything by mail, by the way. I would hand deliver it. I will always hand deliver it. I'm very freaky about that stuff. What if the mail carrier has an accident? What if a storm comes? What if, I can't sleep. It's too much work to put a bid together to not send it or bring it yourself or do a certified carrier. If the bid is sent by mail, the sealed envelope shall be enclosed in a separate mailing envelope with the notation sealed bid enclosed on the face thereof. 4.3.2, it's almost like when you go to studio, right? And you're like at the train and you're like, oh, my models could break and something could happen. You think of all the things that could go wrong. 4.3.2, bid shall be, and then you put your coffee right next to the model before the presentation and you spill the coffee right on it. You projected it through all of this time. Sorry, guys, I digressed. I'm just tired. It happened to me. It's happened to me. 4.3.2. Oh no, almost everything has happened to me. 4.3.2, bids shall be deposited at the designated location prior to the time and date for receipts of bids. Bids received after the time and date for the receipt of bids will be returned unopened. You know what happened? You didn't even make it. You didn't make it so bad that we didn't even bother to keep you. You're out. 4.3.3, the bidder shall assume, and by the way, that's a spoiler alert, 4.3.2, you got to know that. 4.3.3, the bidder shall assume full responsibility for timely delivery at the location designated of the receipt of the bids. Another spoiler alert, 4.3.3, yeah. It happens that they didn't go to the right location, the right address, the right time. They're out. I don't care that you like them. I don't care that you thought they were cool. I don't care what you think about them as the architect. Those contractors are out. They didn't make it. It could have been that you made a mistake on the address on your instruction to bidders. Guess what? It's their duty to actually say, is this the correct address? Call you, do an RFI, and you will respond in an addendum saying, oops, my bad. I made a mistake on the address. But you would not admit to a wrong that you didn't know about. So if they went to China and you told them that the bids were supposed to be delivered to Japan, or even if you didn't tell them that they were supposed to be in Japan, guess what? They have to bring it. They have to make it to Japan. Doesn't make sense to you probably, but this is how it's done, okay? 4.3.4. This is what the AI wants you. And this is spoiler alert. This will probably show up. 4.3.4. Oral, telephonic, telegraphics, fax, email, or other electronically transmitted bits will not be considered. You don't just say, I'm going to do it for 500,000. You just don't call. You just don't text. You just don't email. Nope. You bring the physical papers. 4.4, modification or withdrawal of bid. A bid may not be modified, withdrawn, or canceled by the bidder during the stipulated time period following the time and date designated of the receivable bid. Like after we've gotten the bids, you don't just withdraw it. Okay? Each bidder so agrees in submitting a bid that they were supposed to submit it and not be able to withdraw it within that time. 4.2.2. Prior to the time designated of the receivable bids, yeah, you can do whatever you want. A bid submitted may be modified or withdrawn. Like if this is due on Monday next week and you submitted it on Thursday, you may be able to say, listen, hold on, there's a mistake here. I got to fix something. You can do that. You can take it out. You can. Why? Because you haven't gotten any feedback. Actually, quite frankly, the architect should have never opened it because the opening of the bids should be done publicly in a very nice and democratic place. And guess what? So there's no harm, no foul. Got it? Or withdrawn by notice. You can actually withdraw it. Notice to the other part, the receiving bids at the place designated or the receipt of bids. Such notice shall be in writing over the signature of the bidder. They have to sign it. Written confirmation of the signature of the bidder shall be received and date and time stamped by the receiving party or on or before the date and time set forth for receipt of bids. A change shall be so worded as not to reveal the amount of the original bid. 4.4.3, withdrawn bids may be resubmitted up to the date and time designated of the receipt of bids, provided that they are fully in conformance with the instruction to bidders. Bid security, if required, shall be in the amount sufficient for bids as resubmitted. So you might change it. You might have to change the bid security. Article 5, considerations of bids. Opening of bids. Oh my goodness. We're running out of time, guys. Will you guys stay with me for a little longer? Yes? No? Wanna hang out?
Yes.
Let's do this. Article 5. 5.1, opening of bids. Now, spoiler alert, these ones are critical. You got to know these ones. At the discretion of the owner, and I'm talking about the whole Article 5 is important. At the discretion of the owner, if it's stipulated in the advertisement or invitation to bid, the properly identified bid received on time will be publicly opened and will be read out loud. They would actually say, Danco Construction, $500,000. Miranda Construction, $650,000. You know, all of the ones that qualify, right? That meet the criteria will be read out loud on a public place, on a place that has been advertised. Can't just be on a little underground place where nobody knows about it. No, it's got to be public. It's got to be democratic, right? So that's it. An abstract of the bids may be made available to the bidders. An abstract means here is the summary of the things that we considered and the people that got it. I may be able to find an abstract of a project that we designed that got, you know, tremendous job. I loved it. The design wasn't great, but the whole process was very nice. I'll show you what that looks like. Rejection of bids. The owner shall have the right to reject any or all bids. Yep. I mean, he is the bachelor. He or she is the bachelor, bachelorette. They get to pick whoever they want whenever they want to. You can't be forced. A bid not accompanied by a required bid security or by other data required by the bidding documents, or a bid which is in any way incomplete or irregular, is subject to out, rejection. Acceptance of bid is the equivalent of a word. It is the intent of the owner. It is the desire, the goal, right? The bachelor goes to the bachelorette or bachelor show with intent of finding that qualified person. Same thing here. They go with intent of finding somebody that will meet the requirements, make the cut, and build this building for me. It is the intent of the owner to award a contract to the lowest qualified bidder, provided the bid has been submitted in accordance with the requirements of the bidding documents and does not exceed the funds available. The owner shall have the right to waive informalities and irregularities in a bid received and to accept the bid which in the owner's judgment is in the owner's own best interest. Now you're saying, Darwin, so the owner can bend the rules? Yeah, a little bit. They're talking about informalities, right? They did everything typed and then they hand wrote their name on the cover. Not big deal, right? They made a mistake with the text and the numbers of the numbers, right? We're gonna go with the written text. It's an irregularity, an informality, a little kind of mistake, happy mistake. But it looks like everything else checks out, right? Because there are things that are of the essence and there are things that are not of the essence. I was very critical before when I was just saying why they will be out. If they're on time, they're out. If they're not in the amounts that they're supposed to be, they're out. If they don't even show their company name, they may be out. But you know, this is an irregularity, informality. Maybe they then put their name and you know, we can infer who they are, then great, that's fine. But because this is for the owner, right? The owner is gonna enter into a relationship with these people, contractual relationship, you know. So, and you know what? To continue with the bachelor type of example, they wanted tall, dark, and handsome, but it turns out that there is this little guy that happens to be wealthy and has a cute smile. At their discretion, they may pick whoever they freaking want, right? Same thing in here. Well, they wanted X, Y, and Z, but the owner's own discretion and best interest believes that, and this is not on public jobs, by the way. This is more in general, but public jobs are a little bit more strict. They're more like what I said, out, 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 pretty straightforward, right? This is a little more for private owners, to be honest, on this end. Because you can't just, what is the word, you know, like alienate or profile or, you know, just be biased towards somebody because because they have a great smile and have money, on that bachelorette example. But 5.3.2, the owner shall have the right to accept alternates in any order or combination unless otherwise specifically provided in the contract documents. You know, sure. And to determine the lower bidder on the basis of the sum of the base bid and alternates accepted. You got to add them all up and see who is the lowest bidder. By the way, most of the time, almost all the time, in public jobs, at least in Massachusetts, the lowest responsible bidder gets awarded the contract. Why? One, it's taxpayers' money. So we want to use it the best possible way. We want to go with the cheapest person. Period. It's funny. You know, if they're the lowest qualified bidder, it means that they will do everything within the quality and scope and time that we wanted it to be. So why not go with the lowest that will do the job that we wanted them to do anyways, right? That's the whole point of it. That gets a little tricky because some of the time they have to cut corners to become that lowest bona fide bidder, right? So that's the point. Article 6. Did I get that one right, Miranda? So Article 6, post bid information. 6.1, contractors qualifications thing. Bidders to whom award of a contract is under consideration shall submit to the architect upon request a properly executed AIA document A305. I've never had to read this one. I would recommend you guys to read it. I didn't have to pass the AREs. Well, guess what? Nothing can hurt, right? It could actually make you a little bit better. So read it. But I probably will make a video on it. I will try to make videos on things that I know would have helped me when I took the exams. And thankfully, I was on ARE 5.0. So I kind of had to deal with this stuff. So contractor's qualification statement. Unless such a statement has been previously required and submitted as a prerequisite to the issuance of bidding documents, whatever. So 6.2, owner's financial capabilities. This one is important. By the way, you remember when I said to you that they may withdraw their bids if the owner hasn't, and they don't have to pay anything, if the owner doesn't meet section 6.2? This is where memory is helpful, guys. Section 6.2, boom, right here. The amount of the bid security shall not be forfeited to the owner in the event the owner fails to comply with section 6.2. What is section 6.2? This is like a movie that tells you to be, something that gets, you're like, what is it? So let's go to section 6.2 and I'll tell you what it is. The number one responsibility of any owner, to be honest, guys, is to make payments. And they got to prove that they can make payments, period. So the owner shall, at the request of the bidder to whom award of the contract is under consideration, and no later than 7 days prior to the expiration of the time for withdrawal, because when they submit, they have a period to withdraw. Well, guess what? The owner got bankrupt. I'm out. Yeah, they can be out. They can actually quit. They can actually get out and not have to pay anything. Furnish to the bidder reasonable evidence that financial arrangements have been made to fulfill the owner's obligations under the contract. Unless such reasonable evidence is furnished, the bidder will not be required to execute the agreement between the owner and the contractor. I don't have to marry you, like what is it, 60 days fiance, 90-day fiance show or whatever. I don't have to marry you. You didn't comply with the requirements. I'm out. 6.3, submittals. The bidder shall, as soon as practicable or as stipulated in the bidding documents, after notification of selection of the award of a contract, furnish to the owner through the architect. Remember that communications in accordance to this between the owner and the contractor go through the architect because the A201 says so. And we have recorded the A201 in our channel. Rebecca, if you can send me an email with your phone number, I'll add you to our WhatsApp channel, WhatsApp group, and in which I will share a link to my YouTube channel. And I want everyone to join that YouTube channel. Spread the love. This is free for everybody. Nobody has to pay a thing for this. So all I ask is for a thumbs up, a like, some comments, and some momentum. And tell me something you guys want to know so that I can continue to create more and more of this content. And ultimately, so that we can create a better world through diversity in architecture. That sounds like, yeah, that sounds right. So 6.3, submittals. All right, so we got that. And we went through that part. Somebody left. Who left? Miranda? Yeah. So they gotta submit the following in writing through the architect: a designation of the work to be performed with the bidder's own forces, what they will be doing, names of the manufacturers, products, and suppliers of principal items or systems, all this stuff that has to do with quality right there, right? Names of persons or entities, including those who are to furnish materials or equipment, all of that stuff. Why? Because if we have reasonable objection, they will have to replace them. I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but the bidder will be required to establish, to the satisfaction of the architect and owner, the reliability and responsibility of the persons or entities proposed to furnish and perform the work described in the bidding documents. Prior to executing the contract, the architect will notify the bidder in writing if either the owner or architect, after due investigation, has reasonable objections to a person or entity proposed by the bidder. It may be a felon or somebody that has a background issue, or it may be somebody that simply has a bad relationship with the owner or architect. You don't want to work with somebody that you just can't work with, period. So, but there may be other better reasons too. So if the owner or architect have reasonable objections to a proposed person or entity, the bidder may, at the bidder's option, withdraw the bid. Out. Listen, you don't like my people, you don't like me. No my share, no my problem. Or two, submit an acceptable substitute person or entity with an adjustment in the base bid or alternate bid to cover the difference in the cost occasioned by such substitution. The owner may accept the adjustment bid price or disqualify the bidder. In the event, like, you either take the new person that's more money or less money, or you just say you're out. I can't work with you. In the event of either withdrawal or disqualification, the bid security will not be forfeited. 6.3.4, like the bid security would not be lost because of that. They will get their money back. I think that's what it means. So let me know if I say something wrong. 6.3.4, persons and entities proposed by the bidder and to whom the owner and architect have made no reasonable objection must be used on the work for which they were proposed and shall not be changed except with the written consent of the owner and architect. You can't promise me that you're going to be working with the top-notch people and then change them up throughout the project to save money. No, I'm sorry. You're not doing that. Not on my watch. Article 7. And then we got Article, we're almost out. Article 7, performance bond and payment bond. Very important. I want you guys to know what a performance bond and payment bond is, and I want you to research it. And I want you to look it up on one of our favorite books. One is the Architect Handbook of Professional Practice, but also the Project Resource Manual document. They define it very well. In fact, little homework. Write a question on what a performance bond is and a payment bond is in a form that looks like the ARE questions, using their guidelines and how they write questions. Write one for me on performance bond and payment bond. 7.1, bond requirements. If it's stipulated in the bidding documents, the bidder shall furnish bonds covering the faithful performance of the contract and payment of all obligations arising thereunder. Bonds may be secured through the bidder's usual sources. 7.1.2, if the furnishers of such bonds is stipulated in the bidding documents, the cost shall be included in the bid. Yeah, I mean, you're going to insure the bid, you got to put that money within the bid, right? Like, anything that you got to put there that you got to cover, it's got to be covered within the project. You can't just be funding things. If the furnishing of such bonds is required after received of the bids, like if something that was added after the fact, or before execution of the contract, the cost of such bid bonds shall be added to the bid in determining the contract sum. So you get your bid, you open it up and add up that new thing that you didn't even know about. 7.1.3, and it should add it for all of the bidders, so it's fair. If the owner requires that bonds be secured from other than the bidder's usual sources, meaning they got to get another insurance company, they got to get something else that they didn't have, that they don't typically have, that most of them don't typically have, the changes in cost will be adjusted as provided in the contract documents. Time of delivery of the time of delivery and form of bonds. The bidder shall deliver the required bonds to the owner not later than 3 days following the date of execution of the contract. Like, they don't have to get this insurance unless they have been kind of selected, because it would not make sense. I don't have insurance for towers, but if I was to be selected to build a tower, to design a tower, I'm not a builder, I would get insurance required. And I would charge the owners. Of course, they got to pay for it. A little bit of practice management for you right there. If the work is to be commenced prior thereto in response to a letter of intent, the bidder shall, prior to commencement of the work, submit evidence satisfactory to the owner that such bonds will be furnished and delivered in accordance with section 7.2.1. Then 7.2.2 says, unless otherwise provided, the bonds shall be written on the AIA document A312. I have never had to read that one. I want you to read it. Performance bond and payment bond, both bonds shall be written in the amount of the contract sum. 7.2.3, the bonds shall be dated on or after the date of the contract. 7.2.4, the bidder shall require the attorney, in fact, who executes the required bonds on behalf of the surety to affix thereto a certified and current copy of the power of attorney. Article 8, form of agreement between owner and contractor. Unless otherwise required in the bidding documents, the agreement to work for the work will be written on an AIA document A101. Right here. See that one? Right there. Okay. Standard form agreement between the owner and contractor where the basis of payment is a stipulated sum. With that being said, we've completed our instruction to bidders. And I would say anybody who's trying to take construction evaluation, watch this a couple of times and quiz yourself on it. There will be questions on that. Anybody who's taking PDD, project planning, project development, and documentation should be familiar with this because it's kind of right there. Not quite when you start the construction, but right when you finish the construction document. So this is kind of the sweet spot in there where you will have to deal with this. And as always, I recommend all of these contracts are going to be useful for practice management, project management, and construction and evaluation. With that being said, I'm going to stop recording now. And before anything, I'm going to say we have some good things coming up. One of the things is that I spoke with Mr. Kevin Greenlee from Pluralsight. He's a dear friend of mine for many years now, and he will be joining us at some point to do a sort of launch and learn with us about testing strategies and things that he's learned through all of this time, being one of the pioneers of content creation on the ARE's preparation sort of industry. If you don't know about him, Google him, go on Pluralsight, like his stuff, check it out. He also has developed an app, and I am not by any means getting paid to say this, not at all. I just, as a friend helping a friend. And plus, he's going to join and help us create diversity in architecture through the preparation of people from all the way through, taking the exams and passing the exams and training them beyond. So with that being said, I'm going to say bye, and we can talk after offline. Thank you so much.